Israel Adesanya wins via unanimous decision, 10th straight win for the last style bender at middleweight. Successfully defends his title for a third time, now 10-1 in his UFC career. Snaps the 5-fight win streak of Marvin Vettori. Vettori's only 2 losses since 2017 have both come against Adesanya. All right, back here with Brian Campbell. Let's welcome in UFC Hall of Famer Rashad Evans. And BC, I'll start with you here. Again, it wasn't flashy, but it was effective. How about the ground game of Israel Adesanya to retain the belt?
That was the turning point. You asked me ahead of this fight, what could Adesanya have learned from that loss to Blachowicz? Well, you would hope he would learn how to be comfortable with his back on the ground. He certainly showed that in this one. Once you realized in this fight that Marvin Vettori, who's very aggressive, very good at double leg and taking you down, was going to be unable to have any success in that spot, the tables and the momentum really shifted back in Adesanya's favor. It's tough for Vettori. He just wasn't fully equipped to almost know how to put the fight away in those moments. He's known for his aggression, but if you're too aggressive against Adesanya, he will make you pay and counter clean. I think Vettori was eating clean shot after clean shot in those first 3 rounds and knew that if he wanted to go full-on spaz, he was going to be looking up at the lights. What turned out to be, because of that and because of the strong game Adesanya showed on the ground, was if you try to point fight him, you just can't beat him. He's too quick, too slick, and too accurate.
Yeah, what really surprised me was Israel's ground game for sure. But with his adjustments that he did when he was on his back was very phenomenal. And, one thing that I point out was that what stuck to me was Vettori really made a mistake when it came to holding Israel down. He was trying to squeeze too much force instead of just float on top, allowing his body to just react to the bridges and the strong poses that Israel's going to do to try to sweep him over. If he was able to do that and then transition from one position to the next, he would have been able to initiate the scramble. At that point, it would have better served him to then go grapple Izzy at that point, because Izzy may be able to get out a few moves here and there, but to be able to engage in a full grappling with a lot of transitions that may be a little bit over his head. And you can tell that that may be the case because Vettori, when they were scrambling, he found himself in a very advantageous position by having the back of Israel. But Israel did a really good job of getting out of that. But the opportunities were there for Vettori. He just got caught standing too long, watching on his feet, and when on his ground, he did not capitalize because he was not initiating the scramble enough.
Marvin Vettori was looking for this fight to spring him to UFC stardom, perhaps. Instead, he does go 5 rounds. He goes the distance, BC. What did you learn about Vettori in this one?
Yeah, it really confirmed some of the things I know coming in, that he's fully aggressive. He got in exceptional shape for this, and I do have to give him the respect for that win streak that got him into this fight. He's an evolving fighter, but he's far from a finished product. And when he did step up in the bright lights on the biggest stage, when it came down to skill, he didn't have what it took against Adesanya. That's not to damn him, though. The real theme and takeaway that we took from this fight is that Adesanya, coming off that loss in the Dare to Be Great opportunity against Blachowicz, re-established himself as in contention for that pound-for-pound top spot. Welterweight champion Kamaru Usman, currently my #1 pound for pound. This performance from Adesanya, while far from, let's say, thrilling or back and forth or all action, it was thorough and dominant. No hiccup, as we mentioned, no hangover from the defeat. He's in his prime. He's in the midst of a very impressive middleweight title reign.
So when they fought 3 years ago, it was a split decision, Rashad. This time, it's unanimous. Perhaps you go back and look at that fight 3 years ago, you say, well, maybe it should have been unanimous. What did you see in this fight? BC certainly scoring it in favor of Israel Adesanya, no doubt there. But when you look back at that last fight, what is the difference here from that first fight to this one on this night?
Well, the difference in the first fight is that Vettori knew in the last final round in the first fight that he could really do some damage on the ground. He really used a lot of transitional positions to grind out Izzy on the ground. This time when he had Izzy on the ground, there wasn't so much grinding as much as static holding. And that static holding was what caused him on the bottom and allowed Izzy to have a foothold to be able to reverse positions when they were just in static holds on the bottom. And that really shouldn't have happened if he was moving constantly, working Izzy inside of the guard, making Izzy have to adjust and move his hips and shrimp. If he's moving his hips and he's shrimping, trying to move out the way, then it's going to be very hard for him to really grab a hold of Vettori to do those kind of rolls that he did to reverse the position. But on the feet as well, too, Vettori was more efficient on his feet because he wasn't standing around watching. He was watching a lot in his fight, and you heard his corner, Rafael Cordero, really point to that and say, hey, we're watching, we're standing around, we got to get offensive. When you watch your fighter, you watch your opponent do the moves that you watching him that you watched out for, it becomes a point where you stop your own offense. And when you stop your own offense, it just makes it so that your own opponent, your opponent can get off even more.
All right, so after the fight, Israel Adesanya says he wants to run it back with old Bobby Knuckles, Robert Whittaker. Can't wait for that a second time. Adesanya knocked him out in the second round when they fought in 2019. Whittaker then tweeted this, "Rest up, see you soon." As BC would say, inject this into my veins right now.
Get your popcorn ready, as they say. Look, this fight, when it happened the first time, all Oceanic Super Bowl means so much to that part of the world in Australia, in New Zealand. Also means a ton to mixed martial arts. Well, Adesanya got the best of the champ then in Whittaker. That may have been a compromised version of Robert Whittaker, who had tough fight after tough fight. He went 10 rounds with Yoel Romero in back-to-back bouts. He had injuries. He had mental fatigue. He has rebounded in a big way with 3 impressive decision wins, all against elite competition. I'm telling you, this rematch is among the best fights you can book in the entire sport. Tell me, please, as Khabib would say, send me location. I need to be there.
Absolutely, BC. I need to be there as well. I mean, listen, you know, these two, the first fight was absolutely amazing. Israel was able to edge out Robert Whittaker with a devastating left hook, but at the same time, you felt the intensity of that bout. And going into that fight, Bobby Knuckles was just not himself, but this Bobby, the one who, after the loss, had taken his time to really grow in a lot of areas, mentally speaking. Now you're seeing the confidence, and now you're seeing the joy back into the sport. You see, at one point, there was a point where Bobby was not really liking competing, and you can see that in his performance, but now he seems to have the joy back, and his creativity's back, his game is back on point, and it's going to be interesting to see how his growth in the last few fights compares to Izzy's growth in the last few fights, because Izzy had that loss, and then he had a great fight with Marvin Vettori, but at the same time, there still remains some question to be had, because I feel as if like Izzy did not take the chances that he normally would have taken in previous fights had he not lost a fight with Jan.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.